The case files I have picked so far have not been reviewed since the original investigation. I'll pick an older file to see if this holds true for all cases in this department. Case number 4. This case was not labeled under anything, but we should be able to find out what to classify it under once it is reviewed. Statement by Amelia Leidenhart, given in 1991 as below. I didn't have much money, no health insurance nor anything like that. I didn't have a job that offered it, and a trip to the doctor's was always expensive. I tried as much as I could to not get sick, drank plenty of liquids and soup whenever I felt a bit under the weather. So when I saw a newspaper ad in the newspaper that Sunshine Clinic was giving free flu shots to all females, I jumped at the chance. The address in the announcements was one I knew. It was a 3-floor building that rented out its suites to businesses. I went on my own. It would be on the 2nd floor of the building. Already there was a long line of women. It wrapped around the building. I could see that it was going to take a while, but it was my day off and I had time. I got to chatting with some of the women in line. They all varied in age. They had also seen the ad in the newspaper. I was relieved. I wasn't sure if it would be sketchy, but seeing so many women here made me feel better. It took us about 2 hours of waiting before we were inside the building. The suite did not have any sign that indicated it was a doctor's office. I asked the lady who had started ushering us inside if this was a space they rented for this event. She gave me a haughty look, clearly tired from the long day, and told me in a disgruntled voice, yes, the doctor needed a bigger space than the small clinic we work in to hold this event and rented it a large office space, setting it up so it could be used as a vaccination site for the weekend. She told me that since they were a private sector, the doctor had set this up with his own funds. Several of the women in line made appreciative noises. I could see that the lady respected the doctor. There were about 5 women in front of me and 2 behind. The rest stayed outside the building so we would not crowd the hallway. The building was quiet, and I wondered if the other businesses worked only on the weekdays. The door to the suite was closed, but a loud, piercing screech was heard from inside. I jumped in surprise, as did many of the women in line. The door to the suite burst open, and I saw the lady who had ushered us in come out, along with a woman who was screaming incoherently. "Come now," the lady had told the woman, and she leaned in to place a comforting hand on the woman's shoulder. She slapped her hand away. The lady who worked for the clinic looked upset and turned away from her, staring at us in line instead. "Don't worry about her," she told us. "She didn't want to get the vaccine after all, so she'll be leaving now." The woman behind her pointed a finger, tears still sliding down her cheeks. I could tell she was trying to say something, but it was hard to understand her. I thought I heard her say, "His eyes." The staff lady told the woman to leave, that she was scaring us, and since she was not getting her vaccine, she did not have any business there. The woman turned her tear-stained eyes at us and with a clear voice said, "That man is not a doctor. He will harm us all. Get out of here," interrupted the staff lady. "You will not slander the doctor when he is helping women out of the kindness of his heart," she had said. The crying lady was shooed away, and I could feel something in my gut. It was fear. The lady looked at the first woman in line and told her she could go inside now. I could tell the woman was nervous, but the staff lady told us politely that if we did not feel comfortable after what happened, we were free to go. She told us she felt awful that we had to hear those preposterous allegations. However, everything was voluntary. They were only trying to help, and we could leave whenever we wanted, just as the woman was allowed to leave when she did not feel comfortable. That assurance instantly calmed me, and I knew the rest felt the same. One by one, the ladies went in and came back out after a few short minutes. One of them gave me a thumbs up when it was my turn. I went inside the suite. It had taken several hours, but I was finally here. There was a nurse inside with scrubs and a face mask. She signaled for me to sit down on a plastic chair. The doctor was deep within the room. He had a white lab coat and his back turned towards me as he gathered some items from a table. The nurse wiped an alcohol-filled cotton ball on my left arm and told me to relax. Her eyes were blue and endless. I didn't hear the doctor come next to me until I felt his hand on my arm, steadying it. The needle was in his other hand, and something was off about him. He had sunglasses on, even though we were indoors and there was no windows in the room. The glasses looked odd paired with his coat. It startled me and I accidentally shot my arm back. His face had been too close and I accidentally hit his glasses. They did not fly off. They only moved upward slightly, and quicker than I thought possible, he had righted them over his eyes again. I was only able to catch a glimpse, so I'm not sure if what I saw was correct. But his eyes weren't normal. They were vertical, like if someone had gotten his eyes and turned it so they were no longer horizontal. It looked so alien on his face, it scared the hell out of me. I did not know what to do. I looked at the nurse to see if she had seen what I did, but she just kept looking at me, talking to me, telling me I needed to relax. It would only be one quick shot and it would not hurt one bit. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it anymore. I was scared. All the women before me had been fine, but the woman who had screamed, she had said, his eyes. It wasn't because of his glasses. It was because she had seen it too. I felt the needle in my arm, and I stilled, watching the medicine from the vaccine go in. I was shaking. I did nothing, and now it was over. The nurse put a bandage on my arm, and I got up on wobbly legs. I didn't feel any different. It was just like any other vaccine. And I did believe it, for a time. I had almost forgotten about it, thought it was my mind playing tricks on me. But then, 3 years later, I saw another ad on the paper. It mentioned the vaccine site and the date. It was done by one of the women who participated in the vaccine and wanted to get in contact with as many women who had participated as she could. The ad mentioned that complications had arisen on herself and other women who had gotten the vaccine, but it did not specify what complications. The ad had her number, so I called. She asked me if I had tried to get pregnant since getting the vaccine. I had not. I asked her why she was asking me, and she said that she tried to get pregnant, and the doctor told her she could not. She had gone to get her vaccine with 2 other friends. Both of them had a child before getting the vaccine. They decided to test themselves since it had dawned on them that even though they were not protecting themselves, they had also not gotten pregnant since. When the tests came back, they were also infertile. She told me she decided to get into contact with other women who were in the testing site, and each of them had come back as infertile. I had started to get scared. I hadn't thought about having children anytime soon, but I did know that I eventually wanted to. I told her I would get tested. When I did, it came back that I was infertile. I cried. The first thing that popped in my head were the doctor's vertical eyes, and I wanted to throw up. I knew I should have followed my gut and gotten out when I saw his eyes, but I chose to stay. It wasn't even fear that kept me. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to make a big scene like the woman before me had. I convinced myself that I could not have seen what I did, and that a clinic where the doctor was from, the ad said it was called Sunshine Clinic. Well, I looked it up after. It doesn't exist. It never existed. End of statement by Amelia Lightenhart. Detective Padilla's notes on this case are as follows. I looked into Sunshine Clinic, and although there was no clinic by that name, there were a total of 10 different newspaper ads that stated Sunshine Clinic would be giving free vaccines to females between 1987 through 1990. All females that had been identified as getting a vaccine from Sunshine Clinic were afterwards declared infertile. What I'm unsure about was whether the vaccine was intended to create infertility or if it was a side effect of the vaccine, a dominant one. I'm leaning more towards the former, although for what reason I'm unsure. Every place that was rented by Sunshine Clinic was paid in cash, and all names on the lease were proven to be false. However, it does seem that each time they rented a building, 3 people were always on the lease, a male and 2 females, which leads me to believe that 3 people mentioned in Amelia's statement worked together as a team. This deal leaves us with no leads, as they made sure to erase their trail. I have informed my superiors that this case will remain ongoing and that any case that match this be given to me. End of Detective Padilla's notes. There was a follow-up on this case in the year 1999 by Detective Padilla. Her notes state that Sunshine Clinic had not made a reappearance in the following years since 1990. She passed down the modus operandi of Sunshine Clinic to other police precincts in case anything similar were to pop up. Unfortunately, this also turned up nothing. After the follow-up in 1999, this case was not reviewed. I did do a preliminary search of Sunshine Clinic and made the same findings as Detective Padilla. I doubt that this fake clinic is still in operation after 30 years, but this case is still not closed. I admit I am also left stumped as to why these women were purposely made infertile. I do not think that the slanted eyes hold any validity. However, the fact that all women who underwent a vaccine came back as infertile is conclusive evidence that this demented team of 3 people held a war against women and got away without any repercussion to them. And I say a war against women because these vaccines were only for women. This case should be reviewed again with more detail to see if anything new is dug up. I will file it under open cases and label it as a fraud case with intent to cause bodily harm. End of Case 4.
Forgotten Creatures, a weekly horror podcast by Dark Nymph Productions, available on all podcast providers. For more information, follow us on Instagram at Forgotten Creatures Podcast.